Hello and welcome to my painting stream. Today I'm going to be demonstrating Nature's Whispers number 30, and that's going to be a pastel sunset marsh scene or slough. I don't want to use the word swamp. The reference photo is in my art community Discord, and the link is going to be in the description of the video. Here is a preview of our reference photo here. I'm going to probably incorporate more pinks, yellows, and lighten up the sky a bit, but I have worked with the layout and created my thumbnail here. We're going to be doing a Z composition, and I'm going to start with our very typical gold underpainting with the large filbert brush. It's a large oval wash. I'm going to dip that into some nice clean water. And start with my darkest values. I call it a strategic underpainting. I'm going to keep my reference photo really handy while I'm putting the underpainting in, because I believe the more strategic and purposeful you are with every layer of brush strokes, the better everything's going to be for you. Today I'm using a new tape, and I've got it all on here. I am trying out this residue-free TSS Artist Tape Pro. You'll see how it goes. It advertises itself as a low residue, low tack painter's tape, and I am painting on a hot press watercolor paper, so it's a very smooth surface. So there shouldn't be a lot to cling to, but hey, my last brand of tape was fine for a very long time before it started acting up, so we'll just see how it goes. Just gonna try to paint normally with it, just like I would with the other brand. I was getting so much surface tearing with the other one, it was really a sad story. There's gonna be a lot of wetland grasses coming out of the midground and the foreground, and I'm also going to install some lily pads. I'm gonna add a little bit more water to my brush to lighten up the color that I have on the underpainting. The wonderful thing about this color is it can be really altered with the amount of water that you have in your brush. You can go from this deep orange to a really light gold. And that gives you the ability of kind of blocking out your painting and understanding where the values are, and it has that aura of glowing morning or evening light. I'm going to keep the brush strokes horizontal where they're in the water. We've got some tree reflections here that are going to stay dark. There's going to be pops of light coming through that cluster of big trees here. Okay, now I'm going to put a lot of water into my brush and just brush over anything that's still white. That's going to give it just a little bit of glow and cover up the white on the paper, and anything that's already like a darker color is going to be just made a little bit darker. And there we are. That is our very sound foundation to work from. I find that this method is less intimidating for people because then you can just keep on building on the steps that you've already put down. I'm going to start with the sky and kind of work from front to back, with the exception of sky first, then reflection, that I'll put the grasses and the trees over. Although I've caught myself lying about that. Sometimes I will get distracted by something that seems like a good idea and just go that way. A lot of moving back and forth with my painting process. Lots of subtle adjustments. So I'm going to grab my small filbert brush for the sky. It's number 8 filbert. Some nice clean water. I don't think I have any sky blue ready. This is a chunk of paint from our previous painting, and it's a little bit rubbery, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. Even though I'm using acrylic paint, I am also using a wet palette, so paint is reusable. I just wipe off my mixing area and then keep whatever paint blobs are still fine. But if they look a little bit rubbery, they're not dry, they're just got a weird kind of fish flesh texture. And you can get rid of those because that's going to give you a bizarre texture. Okay, but this is fine. So if it has that creamy, low-fat yogurt consistency, then it's fine. Consistency of your paint is a really important thing to take mental note of, because it's gonna dictate how much control you have with your brush, if the paint's driving or if the bristles are driving. And the more viscous a paint is, the more your bristles will be controlling what's going on. Well, the thicker the paint, then the more likely the blob you have on your brush is going to be kind of like at the wheel, if you will. Okay, we got a nice light blue gradient available to us now. And then let's see, how much pink, how much yellow are we gonna go? We're gonna be using quite a bit of the pink and yellow down in the reflection, so I'm gonna make sure to have that mixed and available. Bit of blue there, I'm gonna get that out. There's a nice medium light pink. Okay, I think we can get started with that. sun's going to be radiating from behind these trees. Right there. That'll be nice because it's going to light up the bottom of those clouds. I like to start with the lightest color of the sky first, then work my way to the darker warms, and then put the blues over the top. And depending on how I like where I am in that moment, I will take the warms and brush them over the blues, kind of integrate them. Okay, now that the yellow is where I want it, I'm going to move to the pink. I might add some more pink wispies here. I don't want that one puffy cloud to be the only puffy cloud. Make a mental note to darken the corner also. I added a touch of cerulean blue to the corner of our pink mixture and added just a little bit magenta, and that'll give us a muted purple. Just gonna drag that color in from the outside. Dry brush it over the top of the pink. I'm gonna add a little bit more light pink to that purple color, and I'm thinking I'm going to make the horizon a little bit hazy horizon. So I'm gonna drag this color down onto that tree line, a distant tree line. Lighten it up a little bit as we get towards the sun. Some yellow. That's going to give us a really warm, muted color because of the way these specific colors are mixing. Okay, I'm gonna take the pink and brush it over where the purple meets the existing pink. I'm just gonna integrate that a little bit more and build up the texture. I haven't rinsed out my brush a whole lot, and that's because I am not afraid of variation in the different colors. I do a lot of branch mixing as well. And anytime your color gets a little bit muddy or more muted, you can just use that to pump up the colors around it, because really I want to pump up the focal point, and then everything else can get a little bit more muted, and that's fine. That's going to just pull the eye back to where we want it to go. Let's see, I want a little bit more yellow, because this cloud is just looking right at the sun. It's right there. So I'm going to lighten up that cloud right there. Okay, I just brought a little bit more yellow in. I think now I'm ready to go get some blue. I'm gonna rinse out this filbert brush pretty good. Paying special attention to any paint that's left over near the ferrule, which is the metal attachment doohickey. Because when you do a lot of scrubbing and dry brushing and smashing the brush around back and forth, the paint can kind of work its way up there. Okay. I'm gonna take my absolute lightest blue, and this is part of the reason cerulean blue gets to live next to white. So I can have this sky gradient very easily accessible to me. All these colors are very strategically placed, and they're always in the same place. It's makes it easier to remember how everything is mixed. So I am going to just dry brush drag that light blue color towards where the sun is. I'm going to overlap and underlap just a little bit in various areas depending on what the clouds are doing and how I feel about it. I'm going to go a little bit darker and come up to the top of the painting here. I'm changing the angle of my brush to get different shapes and to fit into different areas. And now as I'm getting further away from the sun, I'm keeping that in mind and just picking up a little bit slightly darker blue color as I move away. The very, very corner is going to be the darkest, but I don't want to go incredibly dark. That's as dark as I want to go. And really just in that spot, I'm going to lighten it up coming away from there. Just gonna do a couple little light accent marks on the underside of the clouds. I think this will be really interesting shapes. Kind of breaking through that foggy diffusion. Okay, so now what I'm doing is making sure that all of the pencil lines, if there are any showing, are just covered up completely. Working with really transparent paint layers, and sometimes that can mean you get a little bit of show through. So you just want to spend a little bit of time paying attention. There is one, I'm actually kind of glad this is showing through so that I can demonstrate what you do if something is happening. So there's some pencil lines here in our light area. You're gonna just need to make sure that you pick up a clean brush, and this is after the area is completely dry. After the area is completely dry, just take some really clean paint. And you're just gonna wanna go back to that spot and do a little bit of a quick layer. Also, if you can drag any shapes over it that makes sense, that would be a good call also. I believe these branches will do the job in obscuring that. Okay, I'm taking that yellow and I'm going over the blue a little bit, making little wispies. Taking some water and a sideways brush to really blend that out. Okay, I'm really happy with that sky. I think that's really dynamic. It looks glowy. It's going to transfer into the rest of our scene really well. Okay, so I'm going to do what we talked about and move to the reflections next. So it doesn't need to be exact. Just you need to make sure to represent where the sun is in the reflection, and that's going to be like a straight line down from it. So you can just take some white and hit all the spots coming straight down where there's going to be water. And I recommend doing this first because it's just going to be easier to keep track of when you're putting everything else in. I I believe this reflection spot is going to be a really big secondary focal point, so I'm going to paint that a little bit big. Now I'm going to add yellow. It's going to extend from that reflection. It's going to be behind these tree trunks too. I don't know how much of this is going to show yet. I'm better safe than sorry. It's okay to overlap what you have in the foreground with your water, because we're going to be painting right over this in a lot of cases. Just keep on using those horizontal brush strokes in the water. If you want to be using a flat brush for right now, during this process, that would actually be a good idea. I just happen to be holding this one. I am now moving over to a flat because I want some bigger brush strokes. It is easier to move from bigger to smaller brush strokes with a flat. You can go from straight across, broadside, or move your hand position and have really, really small marks as well. A combination of both adds a lot of texture. So I need more of that muted purple color. And to get muted purple, you use your warm red and your warm blue. Gonna add a little bit of magenta to the corner of that. It's also gonna increase the darkness of the color a bit. So I want this corner to be kind of dark. Maybe I'm gonna add a little bit of ultramarine blue to that. Will also darken the value. If you feel paint lifting off with a brush stroke, try to refrain from laying it on top and just move to another part of the painting. Don't wait for that to dry. Just do another layer on top. Okay, now I'm going to grab that light blue. Now I'm looking a little bit less at my reference photo because we are almost fully departed from it, and more at the painting. Whoops. I think a really challenging part of painting is knowing when to depart from the reference photo and to just honor your composition. But I feel like this method helps you move away from relying on a reference photo. When you build up layers from the beginning and being intentional, then you have structure to work with. Now, if you have a lot of water in your brush, which you might, because you are also painting water and transparency and all these layers, and that's what I'm doing also, then it's going to dry different than the way you put it down. So you're going to have to go back and alter some things if you choose. Okay, I'm feeling the need to fill in a lot of this area with pink purple. And I'm just gonna leave wisps of the orange that's here. Okay, I'm zigzagging over the blue and the purple with the pink. Making sure that that color is represented in some spots that seem about right. You can always detail some highlights at the very end. Okay, I think it's time to move on to our furthest background trees. They're really rather small, so I think I'm going to go back to that point brush I was grabbing earlier. It's a number 2 point. Or round, rather. And these trees are going to be one of these darker blue-purple values. It just has to be a little bit different from the diffused clouds. And I'm going to increase the warmth of the color as we get closer to the sunspot by adding the pink that we mixed for the sky. Really sketchy loose shapes are completely appropriate for this. And if you lose the tree shapes into the clouds a little bit, that's fine. So it's very diffused and cloudy back there. I'm increasing the saturation right as we intersect with the foreground tree. That looks about right. While I'm here, I'm going to detail that little bright reflection that's going to be behind these tree shapes. I think that that's going to be pretty bright and yellow. That'll make the silhouettes of the trees really stand out. Start doing grass, we're going to have to mix a green, so what I'm going to do instead of that, now I'm gonna do these guys, the silhouette mid-ground trees, which are gonna be pretty purple. I'm using ultramarine blue, quinacridone magenta, and I'm gonna do a little bit of cadmium red to lighten up the value as well. I have like a muted plum color from that. Still using the number 2 point brush, and I'm gonna put in some sketchy shapes. I'm gonna make sure to overlap all of the pencil that we put down. I'm going to paint in this dark color on the bottom edge of this landmass as well. Make sure that that is all along the bottom. Because this dark plum is going to change as we get towards that sun. going to be incorporating that pink in as we move across. Move across and up, up, up. Almost added a little too much cad red there. I'm gonna go back to the pink color. The area around the sun is gonna get a little bit more white too. That's gonna help show the light as if it's blown out the silhouette of the tree that's right in front of it a little bit. But I'm only going to have this color on the shapes that are really right up against that spot. Adding a little bit of that white yellow just to make the transition softer. Okay, great. Now I'm gonna move away from the sun and darken up my colors and kind of meet them in the middle. I want to make sure that the trees that are closer to us have a darker color than the far distant trees, especially if they meet. Mine do meet right there. You can be pretty messy and haphazard with the tree shapes because we are gonna do some negative painting to bring some sky holes back. The focus would be to make sure that the overall shape and the blending, the gradient away from the sun is doing what it needs to do to be convincing. Gradient doesn't need to be completely smooth because there are a lot of branches in these trees that are coming out at you and creating dimension. So be open to some texture here. Totally okay, and if you want, you can make some of the weird blends, kind of give them a little bit of form as if they are just branches coming out at you. And I'm sure that'll work out just fine. There's some grass on this little island, but it's very, very dainty lines. So I'm just going to take my brush and drag up from the landmass. Up and out. Okay, I'm making sure that there's no repeating shapes. And I am now happy with that. Now it's time to mix some swampy green. Cerulean blue, yellow, and that is far too clean and high in chroma for us, so we're going to take some of our underpainting gold that's just hanging out over here and muddy up that color a bit. Already looking a lot more swampy. Okay, Okay, so I like this color as part of what we're doing. So I'm gonna scoot it over. And then I'm gonna make a version of it that has cadmium red and ultramarine blue, which is gonna make it darker in value and also less saturated. This is gonna be our shadow grass color. It's a red-brown right now, but I'm gonna add more yellow to it. Adequately swampy. Now I want to make sure that the purple is available to us, the darkest value is available to us for this grass is also. I'm going to mix that over here. I think that's what we need to get it done. Yes. Okay, I am going to use the flat. And we're going to start in the far distance. That's going to be a lot of like little skinny brush strokes and then move our way up. Because there's going to be some overlapping that happens here. Background grasses are pretty muted and pretty light in some spots. I dragged some light white yellow down into our copper zone, our gold copper zone. And I'm going to start with the area that's closest to the sun. Going to drag that color all the way across our top horizon, gently overlapping the pink purple that's there. Come a little closer to us and with a darker, more muted green, drag back towards the sun, but then it's gonna taper off about an inch out. I want that swamp green to kind of disappear and blend right into the trees that are next to it. Now, when I check the reference photo now, it's mostly to keep track of the values, how dark things are as they fall away into the distance. because everything else is different about what we've painted. Now it's more of an inspiration photo. On this side is the reflection of the landmass and those trees. There's some light coming through. I like using horizontal brush strokes for my reflections and just making sure that the general shapes and the colors are represented. I don't like doing mirror reflections. I think that's what photography is for. I think when you're painting something, you're composing a scene. A little bit differently, with something else in mind. And usually the focal point is not in the reflection, it's somewhere away from the reflection. So you're just using it as a tool to guide the eye to where you want it to go. And that's not how everybody does it, but that's what I think about that. We're not going for realistic here. Also, there's a perspective shift that happens based on where the viewer is and what you're looking at. That's a lot to keep track of. You gotta straight no thank you on that. I'm not going to use all small brush strokes or all large wide ones. It's going to be a variation of the two. Bigger brush strokes, the further you go out from the focal point, is generally what I like to do. I feel like it helps guide you. So don't like things to look too choppy. But that's going to be hugely subjective for you. Anywhere there's a funky blend, you can just put a large intentional brush stroke right over it. And then incorporate some of those somewhere else in the painting so it looks on purpose. I like doing it with a flat brush, but you could definitely experiment with some different options. I'm going to incorporate some shadowy purple into that distant swampy mucky muck, just to send it further into the background. Now we're gonna need to get some vertical brush strokes, and I'm gonna use that swamp color and the sharp side of the flat brush. Like subtly aim these grasses towards the sun. I'm not gonna worry about them blending into the terrain that is above and behind this grass, because there's going to be some lighter grasses as well after I get the darker ones in. Gonna make sure some of those grass shapes are also poking down into the water. Probably a whole bunch, honestly. Make sure to put in a couple of big vertical blocks. Okay, lightening up the color, adding a little bit more gold and a little bit more yellow. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm afraid to put this anywhere near that because this brush is kind of big. So I'm gonna switch to our liner. It's too scary, even for me. Some water. Make sure to sharpen up the brush in the palette. And then dainty, dainty. You're gonna overlap and underlap everything here. You wanna go through the entire area of grass. Once you paint a couple of lines, your confidence will get higher because you know what you're dealing with. You could have a practice paper, but I guess I'm gonna just choose to live on the edge. When you work with the same brushes over and over again, you know approximately what they're gonna do on the first stroke. It's not a complete mystery. So it's not terrifying. That's why I like using limited colors and limited brushes, because then the predictability with everything is higher. It's much easier to know what you can do and what's going to happen. I'm lightening up the color that I'm using on these grasses, and as I lighten up the color, I'm putting less and less strokes, and also moving towards the middle of the scene. I'm going to drag down some more shadow color in the reflection. There's quite a bit of water in my brush right now, so that's going to make it a lighter color. It's going to be more transparent, let more of the underpainting through. Just feel like as we're moving closer to the camera, there should be some more water lines. Lovely. Gonna add a little bit of that up here. Okay. Gonna go back to the flat brush for a bit. Get our swampy green and our dark purple. I'm going to do the horizontal brush strokes first on this grass mass. And I'm going to do the neighbor at the same time. Similar things are happening here, even though it's not exactly the same. It's still in the foreground. And I think the grasses on the right side are going to be a little bit taller. Okay, now that the horizontal strokes have been put in, the shadow grasses. First layer of shadow grass is going to go in with the flat. Now, if this is not giving you the shapes that you want, don't be afraid to just switch to the script brush. Because all it takes is a couple of big, high contrast grass lines that you hate to really be demoralizing. I'd rather you be careful. Take a little bit longer. I'm going to obscure the grasses at the edges of the painting because I don't want those lines leading you off the composition. I'm still on the flat brush despite my best advice. I'm making sure that all of the remaining pencil lines are obscured, and if you can see them, at the very least you don't notice them because they're completely integrated. Got some bigger vertical brush strokes as well as horizontal. Lovely. There's also lily pads in this one. I think I'm going to do those with our point, the number 2 point that we've been using throughout. I got our swampy green. Grab some water, some swampy green. It's okay if some of this is pretty transparent shows. I don't want them to be like super high contrast. It's a subtle thing. Maybe I'll make them a little bit warmer and a little bit lighter. At least this one. I'm gonna add that color to the corner of the other ones that are sitting right here. I guess I wanted 3 right there, I don't know. Oh God, once you start putting these places, you're gonna want to put them everywhere. And then you gotta make sure that they're leading you in the right direction. You're gonna have to lighten some of these up. They can't all be exactly the same because they're in spots that have different light. There we go. Don't want to go overboard. I might add a touch of green to those. A touch of our brighter green. There's going to be some water in the brush though, so that we can easily integrate and blend it in. And I'm just going to go with the away edge. And there we go. That's more convincing. They sit better on the water. I'm gonna put a couple of vague shapes, vague lily pads, just to further integrate them into the scene. They belong here. It's fine. Okay, now script brush, bright grasses, medium and bright grasses. And then we can do that magical sky holes in the trees, which I love doing at the end. It just makes the whole painting alive. Okay, first the mid-tone green, the swampy green, and the brighter green are going to come together. These grasses going over the lily pads is also going to help integrate them into the scene. I'm going to go back and forth with these grasses. I'm going to be very intentional with the angle. going to be dragging them all the way down into the water. They're going to be poking out the bottom into the water. Okay, now some white yellow. I'm gonna bring that down. Enough water to make our brush easy to control. This is like almost light part of the avocado green. There's a lot less of these lighter grasses, like dramatically less, and more intentionally placed closer to the middle of the painting. Gonna add a few more up here. Now I'm going to take this color and come to the background and just make sure there's some greens of this nature up closer to our horizon, closer to our sunspot. This area is actually should have reflection from those trees, but it's branchy reflection. So now that all this water reflection colors are in, I'm going to break up this space with those branches using horizontal brush strokes from our script brush. Just kind of sketch them on here. Just break it up. Drag the color that I just mixed for this around just to integrate it into the area. Make sure there's no weird new color introduced. I'm liking the way that looks. I feel like I want to put a little bit of melon melon orange pink, just a light touch of it on a couple of lily pads. There's a good amount of water in the script brush right now for this, so just so you know, just on that sun edge, just a little line. That line even overlaps onto the water, and that's fine with me. Okay, so we had been using a number 2 point brush in this painting, but I'm thinking we need to go smaller for those tree holes that I'm going to be painting. I'm going to go all the way to the 3-0 with some clean water. I'm going to rotate the brush to get a nice good point on there. Although this guy, you know, he's feeling kind of haggard. He's had better days. Okay, so some tiny shapes using the light yellow. Gonna try to keep in mind where the main branch structures are in this tree. Also going to try not to make too many repeating shapes. If your sky changes color behind your tree, just make sure to change your sky hole color a little bit. It doesn't need to be exact, it's not going to be noticeable. In fact, having the color change just a little bit in the sky hole on the tree gives the illusion of some shifting light, has a kind of a twinkly appearance to it. It's more important to honor your branch structure. Okay, so I'm looking at where we are right now and I'm liking where everything is at. But I'm gonna pop some white in a couple places. Gonna go back to the number 2 point brush. I'm gonna dry it off pretty good. I don't want water in here. I'm gonna take really fresh, clean white, a big bleb of it, and I'm gonna gently lay that down in a couple of highlight spots. So right over the sun, using horizontal brush strokes will create the brightest white. In a spot here, here, just a couple of little cloud shapes up above. All lead lines leading you to our focal point. Love that. Very good. How do I feel about these lily pads? I don't know. I feel like they need a little bit of a shadow on the water. Here goes nothing. I'm gonna take the purple shadow color and just do a line on the water right where they would connect in the shadow. It's subtle, but it's fine. All this is not that important. I'm gonna tone down anything, any colors that pop over there. I don't want them, any bright colors on the edge of the painting to pull your attention away from where it should be going, which is to up the water and to the sun is where we are going in this painting. Okay, well, I think I am pretty happy with that. Your eye goes right to the sun. The light is very sparkling. There's a couple of repeating shapes I'm noticing in the trees. And just keep in mind, don't be afraid to tone down some of those little bird holes that you made. You don't want a pattern to emerge, and if one of them just happens to be like where you think a branch should really be, then just like sketch that guy out. Thus, if you remix a color and it's not quite what you had there before, just integrate it in and blend the edges. Okay, that's looking good. Great. Well, I look forward to doing the rest of that tape review when we do the tape peel, which is going to be right now, and I'll post that later. Thank you so much for joining me on this painting demonstration. And until next time, happy painting.